Welcome one and all. We'll be getting started in about 2 minutes. I was worried there for a minute. There was like 5 of you, and now 30 showed up at once. You guys got us figured out that we started 2 minutes after, so. Bruce is stuck in traffic. I'm gonna give him 1 more minute and then we'll start without him. Boy, Coach Ken, that doesn't even look like you. Is that a new or an old picture? Hey, Eric, if you can unmute Coach Ken, he's going to try to help me a bit today. Ken Bloomberg.
Oh, I had to unmute myself.
Good morning. There you go. I said that. Oh, and Bruce made it. Jeez, that kills my. That kills my opening joke. Doggone it.
Yeah, Bruce is not going to be here on time.
No.
You run for some traffic, Bruce?
Yeah.
I'll tell it anyway. So, all right. It is 3 minutes after. We're a minute late. Eric, go ahead and start the recording, please. Welcome to our fantastic agents and investors nationwide. Today is Thursday, September 28th, 2023. And this is All the Leads Mastermind podcast number 448. Tim has a dental problem or dental issue today. I was going to say Bruce has a mental issue, but that's a bad joke. So Bruce barely made it in. Thank you, Winston. Bruce barely made it in the door on time, but he is here. Welcome one and all. So Tim won't be here, but between Ken, Bruce, and I'm sure we will do an adequate job of filling up the hour. I had a couple things I wanted to start with, and Bruce, I'd like your take on them. I thought a couple things are kind of interesting. I've got a lot of Facebook friends. My wife always says, 4,950 of them aren't really friends, but they're associates on Facebook, which is probably pretty accurate. But I saw an interesting post this week that got my attention, and then I saw a follow-up one that really gave me kind of an interesting idea. Someone posted, of course, thanks to our inefficient government, the interest rates are ridiculously high, and it's killing my business. And so I did a little bit of not either political. I'm not going to say which side he was on because it doesn't matter. But I did a little bit of research I thought was kind of interesting. Since 1970 in the US, the average interest rate has been 7 3/4. And that's come way down because they were so artificially low the last couple of years. When I was selling real estate, they generally were between 10 and 12%. And when they got below 10, we were thrilled. And I just tell you a quick story. In 1981, the rates peaked out at 18 3/4. It was actually 18.63. And there was a local bank that was offering a bond program. They were offering an incredible deal for first-time home buyers, 13 3/4. If you'd never owned a home before. And I actually slept in line with about 15 of my customers, and we made the front page of the newspaper. Because it was a cold day in Florida, so we're out there in 35-degree weather, sleeping in line to get a 13 3/4 interest rate. So I would kind of say, hogwash that the rates are high now. If anything, they're average or they're still reasonable. They're certainly higher than they've been the last few years. And so I saw that, and then I saw something later the same day, a couple hours later, that I found very interesting. And I fact-checked this with my mortgage broker. And this probably won't be any startling news to you, but I see a couple ways that you guys could use it. Someone posted, another one of my friends posted, if you're a buyer in this market and you're negotiating with the seller, if you're buying a $300,000 house and you ask them to reduce the price by $10,000, it saves you about $78 a month. If you ask that same seller to contribute $10,000 to buy down your interest rate, it saves you $248 a month.
Hmm.
So it's now my mortgage broker did say that Fannie Mae has a 3% or 2% limit. So, on the less expensive houses, it might not be as dramatic, but it's about a 3-to-1 return on buying the interest rate down versus getting the price reduced. And it occurred to me, if I was an agent today, I would be pitching that in my listing presentations. I just had this great idea, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We can make your listing appear so much more attractive by advertising, buy this house and we can get your buyer a lower interest rate. And of course, they could do it with any listing, but I would use that as a listing tool, and I might use it on some of my listings also too. It certainly should impress the seller. They probably haven't heard anybody else mention that before. And it's a viable tool that you might want to use today, because the perception is, whether it's accurate or not, historically the rates aren't high, but the perception is they're terribly high right now. So if you can use a tool like that to overcome that and make yourself stand out, I thought that might be a valuable idea to throw out to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce, that's all I've got. Your thoughts, or what do you have?
Yeah, in some markets, in some niches inside of our markets, the market does seem to be a little bit sluggish. So in my area, it's the townhome niche. These are properties that when interest rates were really low, they were selling at about 250. So these are probably mid 2000s townhomes that were selling at about 250, maybe 300. Well, now all of a sudden they're at 450 to 500. And that's where they were going. And with the interest rates higher, they're sitting. They probably haven't lost all their value or anything like that, but they're sitting. And so they're definitely losing some value. So that kind of takes me back, and I know not everybody's market sluggish. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but it takes me back to when the market was really sluggish in the 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 range, where 15 is where it really started to run. And during that, about a 4-year period where it wasn't falling, but it really wasn't climbing a lot either, what we used to do is we would actually, in our advertising and in the copy, we would write what the payment was going to be. Now, there's a regulation called Regulation Z that if anyone rushes out and goes, hey, I'm going to write in my copy what the mortgage payment's going to be, don't do that without following Regulation Z. And that basically tells the buyer that's looking at your listing what interest rate you're basing it off of, what your mortgage principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are going to be. So you've got to put all that in and kind of tell them where you're coming up with that number. So using the method that Jim just mentioned of actually buying points down, you could go and say something like, assuming that you're a qualified buyer, you could get this house with at a 6.5% interest rate. Well, they've been potentially shopping other lenders at 7.5 or 7.25. So you could say this property is available at a 6.5% interest rate and a payment of only $3,600. So they're probably accustomed to seeing that higher payment at the higher rate. And then you just have to tell them exactly how that plays out in the copy, and then say you must be qualified with my lender. You don't have to use my lender, but you have to be qualified with my lender. So that's something that you guys can do if you have houses that are kind of languishing on the market. You could always advertise a rate and a payment, as long as you put the actual terms inside of the copy that you're writing on your listing.
And someone just commented that they just did exactly that. They did a $15,000 credit on a sale, interest rate buy down on the credit, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
Somebody with Cooper Realty mentioned that. So
Yep.
thank you. Appreciate
Yep.
that.
I think the buy down is a great idea, especially for those stubborn sellers that, refuse to acknowledge that possibly the price is coming down in their market. But I do think it's very important to know your market as well. I do think most markets are going to start coming down. Real estate is a slow moving ship. I call it a cruise liner. It doesn't turn around quickly, but they do turn around. So number one, know your market, try to know the months of inventory, have a 3-month chart of what inventory is. So right now in our market in Las Vegas, there's not a lot of homes coming to market, but the ones that have been there are piling up, right? So increased inventory means downward pressure on prices. And when you sit down in front of a seller, a potential client, you want to build rapport. I always hammer, pound the desk, build rapport. But you got to come at it as from both angles. You have to be a market expert, know your numbers. I had a deal recently, fell at escrow 3 times. So I go, okay, listen, we're so close because we're getting into contract, but they keep checking out the condition of the home and canceling. We have to do a price reduction. So he said, hey, I understand. I said, we don't want to get behind the market in a market that's coming down. So we dropped the price and got the house sold. So be a market expert, educate your clients, and also pick the right clients that are going to listen to you. Some people, they're thick. They will, they just, they're never going to listen. So pick your clients correctly.
Yes, pick your clients correctly, learn skills of influence as well to be able to not just boss them into choosing the right path, but being able to make them feel like it's their idea in choosing the right path. Okay. Couple of ways that I used to do that is I'd say, hey, in a market like this, I'm going to give you 3 strategies and I'm going to give you the cons of each strategy and pro of each strategy. And then I'd say in a market like this, you probably want to go with X. So I'd say we could price the house 1% or 2% under the comparable values. The pros are you might get multiple offers. The cons are maybe you get that 1 or 2% less than what we hope for. And then I say we could price the at market value at what the comparables are saying. And the cons are you don't want to catch a falling knife. So if you guys have never heard that, you should go look it up. Don't catch a falling knife. If the market's declining, we've seen people chase the market down, always staying that 1% behind where the prices are going. And then you've always got the option of listing 1 or 2% above market in a climbing market. And say, if the market was great, this would be something that you might want to do. It's not great, so I don't recommend it. And then say, which one of those strategies feels best to you? Now, I've painted it in a way that it's kind of a no-brainer. We don't want to catch that falling knife by listing at. It's kind of a no-brainer. Now, all of a sudden, they feel like they're in control of choosing the 1 or 2% below comp values. Okay.
Yeah, or 2-week price reductions. If they're willing to commit to that, it's sometimes you just got to find, like Bruce said, the right strategy. You don't like listing low. Okay, you want to list $20,000 too high, in my opinion. But hey, sometimes I'm wrong, and I'm open to that fact. So let's list at your price. But we said we want to get this home sold in 60 days at the most, 30 days preferably. So let's do a price reduction strategy depending on how many people come through our door. We know that we should have 3 to 5 a week. If we get crickets, for 2 weeks, that's an indication we have to lower the price. So let's commit to doing that right now before we get this home listed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things that what Ken just said, I do almost verbatim, almost. The only caveat, the only twist that I throw in there before I say let's reduce in 2 weeks is I'll usually say, what are you going to feel? What are you going to be feeling or experiencing if we don't have any activity in a couple of weeks? And I usually get them to go, I'm going to be panicking. Okay. The way to counter that is going to be to schedule a price reduction in 2 weeks, just in case we haven't gotten anything at your price. So you get them to kind of admit that they're going to be panicking or what they're going to be saying. And you know what? Sometimes it might backfire. Sometimes they go, I'm not in a hurry. Well, guess what? You might not have the right client if they don't need to sell. So, Ken, this is good. We're bouncing off. Jim, do you have anything that you've done, Ken?
But I really dig that, because now you're selling on an emotional level, you know, because again, I used to be more of like the market expert. I have the most sales, the reviews, you know, the marketing, but you don't really understand the emotions of the client. So I think that's an excellent point. You know, take their temperature. How soon do you need to sell? Where are you going to go? You know, are you okay with your bills? You know, is everything financially okay? Get on that emotional level and find out, you know, what's making them tick and why they're making the sale.
Sometimes they don't even know what their emotions are going to be until they're there or until they've thought about it. You know, things build. I can remember, and this is not this has nothing to do with real estate, but emotions build up. And sometimes when they sneak up on you, you don't even expect it. I remember when I was 21 years old, I was selling cars in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was pretty awful car salesman, pretty terrible. My dad had to come pick me up after 3 months of missed rent payments. So I was bad, but I remember taking a couple out for a test drive.
You seem like you'd be very good at it, but okay.
I had to learn a lot. But I didn't learn it while I was selling cars. I learned what not to do when I was selling cars. So I took this couple out, and we didn't look at the gas gauge before jumping in the car and running out. And we ran out of fuel on the highway. And I called the dealership, and they were supposed to send someone to bring us some fuel. And we waited and waited and waited. And I was highly embarrassed. And the woman kept saying, "It's okay. I understand. Everybody makes mistakes." And she was totally fine. And both of them were really comfortable. They were laughing. They were joking. And I joked back with them because they'd been joking and trying to calm me down the whole time. And I joked back with them. And all of a sudden she went, "I can't believe you think that this is a funny situation. I'm sick of seeing you. Get out of my sight." And it was like this build for her. And I'm convinced that she didn't know that those emotions were building up until they were there. They were probably building up, but she didn't know that it was happening.
She was probably under a lot of stress too. And then, you know, some people, when they get under stress, they just act out emotionally. And that's probably what happened. It had nothing to do with you. It just, there was this pressure that needed to be released, and you happen to be in the line of fire.
I was there. Yeah, I was exactly in that line of fire. So the thing is, guys, is your consumer, your client, your seller doesn't know what they're going to be feeling in a few weeks unless you can lay a game plan out. You set expectations and you bring things up that you know might happen, especially if you feel like maybe your price is a little bit aggressively high. So before you agree to take that listing or sign whatever that deal is, you say, "Hey, what are you going to be feeling in a couple of weeks?" And bring it up, because they haven't even thought of that scenario. They haven't even thought, "Oh yeah, if it hadn't sold in a month, I might be feeling this." So you bring it up, and what are you going to be feeling? Okay. And then you might say in a month or 3 weeks, this is what a lot of people are feeling. Could you see that being a possibility with you? And if they say yes, that's your perfect opportunity to build that price reduction, schedule that price reduction into the strategy.
And Bruce, I can't believe we're talking about price reductions. There's people that started their career in the last 10 years and don't know what that is. they've never had one. And we're probably not there yet. But you reminded me, back in my career, I was with a national franchise. We offered something called the Seller Service Pledge, which here's everything we're going to do. If we don't do it, you can fire us, or you can give us an opportunity to correct it and fire us. And when I knew I was going to need a price reduction, I would go ahead and sign that and leave it with them, and then try to get them to pre-sign the price reduction ahead of time and say, "Okay, now we agreed in 2 weeks, if it hasn't sold, we're going to reduce it to this amount. Go ahead and sign that. It'll just save me a trip back to the house at that time." I would say a third of the time they would, maybe 2/3 they'd say no, but yeah, why not get a commitment from them? They're more likely to stick to it than a verbal commitment.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Go ahead, Ken.
No, well, actually now I lost my train of thought, sort of, but I was going to pivot to another topic, and I guess we can come back to that. But I had a mobile home client recently, and I've had this now twice, where the mobile home actually was not transferred to the person that got the land transferred to them, the decedent. In this most recent case, the woman said she didn't know what she's going to do because her brother got the mobile home, she got the land. I said, well, it sounds like you're holding the cards because he can't tell you to get his land off his mobile home, but you could tell him to get his mobile home off your land. So I said, I know you hate him for what you told me, but you could pay him, probably $20,000 contract for deed, basically convert the land or convert the mobile home and then sell it and then pay him his 20,000, because again, he probably has no intention of moving that mobile home. So, and I just was thinking on my feet when I talked to the lady, but what do you guys think about that?
Jim?
To be honest with you, I didn't completely follow it. Did you?
So Ken, man,
I'm
what's
sorry.
bad is I was actually pulling market statistics to give everyone. So
Okay, sorry. Well, like I said,
we're terrible listeners.
the brother inherited the mobile home, she inherited the land.
Okay.
Got it.
So
you were proposing a solution where they would it'd be a win-win for both of them, what you proposed.
right. And I had
okay.
the land side. So I basically said, hey, I can represent you. We can make the brother inexpensive offer for the mobile home because the chances are he probably doesn't want to move that.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And and what's his alternative? He can't tell her to move the land, right? The land's not going anywhere. So she's holding all the cards.
No,
Either that or he starts paying her rent.
Right.
I think it's a great example of assessing the situation, the benefits to each and proposing a win-win solution. So what happened? Did they agree? You're still working on it?
I'm still waiting for the probate court to take place.
Okay.
But I was wondering if you had any ideas on that, because I had another mobile home that I actually am under contract with and I'm about to sell, that it was similar situation where the land was deeded over, but the mobile home itself was not, there was no clear chain of sale. But so we just found a buyer and just disclosed it. Hey, there's no clear chain of title. The seller has no claims on the mobile home once this piece of land is sold. And we have a buyer that's willing to take that on.
Mm-hmm.
So the two scenarios are similar, but different.
Yeah, I know from experience in Florida, limited experience, that mobile homes without real estate have the same status as a car. It's a registration process. And I have known people to take abandoned mobile homes or trailers and that kind of thing and apply for, there's some kind of a special exemption you can apply, and it's pretty easy at the courthouse for an abandoned property that didn't appear to, and you can get a title issue. At least I've seen that done in Florida.
Yeah, I went to great lengths to try to figure out how that could be done. And I kept running into dead ends. And actually, while we were on the market, I mean, I probably had 40 investors call me and I had to run through the whole thing. I should have done a video and said, watch this video first before you call me. Sure. I should have made that a mandatory thing. But I had to explain the scenario over and over again, and nobody could figure it out. Like I said, at the end of the day, we sold it as raw land and just said, take it at your own risk. And that's it. We're washing our hands of it, and disclosed it all.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yep.
So if you want to pivot back to the market stats, Bruce.
You're good. Yeah, no, you're good. So that one either buy the either make an offer to the brother or have him start paying rent for having his property on her land.
Exactly. Like I said, I was just trying to think on my feet, never ran into the situation before. It's like the mobile home is movable, the land's not. You
Mhm.
have all the power. You can tell him to get the mobile home off your land, or he can sell it to you at a very reasonable price.
Yep. I totally agree with that. I would potentially just add the caveat of him paying rent. Of course, that's not going to look very attractive to her, so she'll choose the ask him to move or buy the
Might
the home.
motivate him though, like you're
Mhm.
saying, you know.
It's really expensive to move a mobile home anyway. So
Right. Yeah.
all right. I want to do two things real quick because we are really not too much on probate so far today. And I know some of you guys have questions on probate, and I've seen a couple of questions come in on chat. But first off, I do want everyone to know. So I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, which has been constantly in the top 5 hottest markets in the country for probably 8 years now. And just always in the hottest markets. Everybody's been moving here, and you know, a lot of people I talk to, a lot of folks that say, oh yeah, my market's still hot, my market's not declining. I talk to a lot of people in Raleigh that say, oh no, the market's great, it's not declining at all, there's still multiple offers everywhere. And it's true, there are still multiple offers everywhere, but it's really important that you guys know your numbers. And so, for example, while I was not listening to Ken, and he while I was listening but not listening,
It was a detailed story, so
yeah, I was looking up in my market, and you all should do the same thing in yours. I was looking up the active inventory in my city. So in Raleigh proper, there's only 718 properties for sale under $1 million. So I pulled them under $1 million, which is really small for a population our size. So we still have a major inventory problem. And you would think that that would mean that prices are still going up, that the market's still blazing hot. 718 properties out of 1 million people is not very many. But then I went and looked at the price reductions in the last week, and there are 278 price reductions in the last week. So about a third, a little more than a third of all of our inventory in a tight inventory market, a little more than a third is reducing their prices right now. So if that's happening here in a market that's been just blazing hot, and one of the things that everyone has said for years is the hottest, most desirable real estate market in the country, or at least one of them, I guarantee it's happening other places too. So don't go off of what your feeling is. Go off of the data. Look at the data yourselves, and it'll give you ammunition when you're actually meeting with sellers. If you're meeting with sellers to buy a property, it'll give you ammo. If you're a listing agent, it'll give you ammo. So I do want to kind of let everybody know that is here, that's never been here before, what this mastermind is all about. Typically it's loaded with probate questions. So this is the All the Leads Mastermind and podcast. You can listen to it after the fact or live. If you're here live, you already know you can listen live. So you're on Zoom. Anyone that's on Zoom should be able to go down to the reactions button if you have a question or comment or want to share your experience or what's going on in your market. Go down to the bottom of your screen, click that little reactions button, and click the bar that says raise your hand. Be careful if you click the clapping hands. A lot of people click that thinking that we're going to call on them. That goes away. We think that you're applauding us or kind of congratulating me on my glowing forehead or something like that. So click the bar that says raise your hand and we'll call on you. If you are here if you're here via Facebook or YouTube live stream, you can chat your questions in to chat, and then those questions are going to come to us on a side screen. We'll be able to answer those for you. If you're looking or you're exploring the probate niche, there's a couple of things that you can do. All the Leads does sell probate leads and marketing and website systems for those that want kind of the all-in-one package to roll out a full probate business. So All the Leads has leads, websites, and marketing systems like mail, social media marketing, things like that. So if you're not a subscriber and you're just looking for leads, check out alltheleads.com. If you're kind of dipping your toes in the water and you're wanting education, you can come back here to this podcast as much as you want. You can go to YouTube, All the Leads. You can watch tons of past recordings, content, trainings, different things like that. Personally, I run a program called Probate Mastery. Probate Mastery is a certification program for those of you that want to dive all the way in and get a certification and take a big substantial course with weekly mastermind calls, monthly role plays, weekly coaching. One of the mastery coaches, Bill Gross, is on the call here today. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get there if you want to go all in and really kind of perfect this niche. If you want to dip your toe in the water a little more casually, every couple of weeks, I host a class called Probate Foundations. It's free for anyone coming through All the Leads. You could sign up for Probate Foundations, and you can do that on the All the Leads website. So alltheleads.com, and go to the training menu item and sign up for Probate Foundations completely free. It's a couple-hour class where I give you really, really good information on how to get started in probate. So, with that said, let me kind of go to a couple of the questions that we have really quickly. And I'm waiting on other people to raise their hand with questions, comments, concerns, anything that you might have, mostly related to probate, but we already opened with a bunch of general listing strategies and pricing strategies. So if you have something not related to probate, we're happy to hear those questions as well.
And Bruce, before you go to the questions, you said we have probate leads. Obviously, we have pre-probate and divorce, and we're getting ready to add half a dozen more. But probate for the last 10 years has been our bread and butter, and it's what's got us here. So yeah, we try to, most of these calls, it's like 80-20 probate versus everything else. But so yeah, if it's probate specific, if you have questions about pre-probate and the difference, if you have any interest in divorce leads. I know we did a survey last week about FSBOs and expireds, and we'll be making a decision on that shortly. But we can get virtually any lead type if it makes sense for you. We try to focus on lead types that are, in one regard, they're low-hanging fruit because the people are motivated. In the other regard, we try to start and focus more on what everybody else isn't doing. Figure out what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. And with probate, that's always been the case. No matter how much we have spread the word, it's still far less competitive than FSBOs or expireds or any other lead sources. So my point being, I guess, doesn't have to be limited to probate, but that's kind of where our niche is thus far, our main niche anyway. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely does not have to be limited to probate. This is really more of a life transitions niche. Exactly. And in life transitions, those are need to sell sellers. Great opportunities for investing, great opportunity for listing. So if you are into need to sell sellers, that's what we're all about. So Jacob brought up the story of a decedent who's a hoarder. If you haven't run into that, you're going to run into it in the probate niche occasionally. And these are some of my favorite deals to do because I can charge more. I can use it as referral opportunities. Sometimes I find amazing finds and buys inside of the house. I was listening to someone the other day talking about how their niche is buying cars. So they buy cars that are wrapped up in an estate going through probate. So there's cars, I've gotten golf clubs, boats. I've personally picked up a car that I thought was worth about $6,000. I said my commission was going to be $6,000. I said, I'll take the car because Blue Book said it was worth $6,000. I said, I'll waive the commission if I can get the car. And she said, yes. Later, I found out it was a classic, and I didn't know this. I wasn't trying to take advantage of the lady. I found out it was a classic, and it was very limited number of vehicles that were made, and I sold it for $18,000. So there's lots of things that you can do in addition to real estate in this, and the hoarder houses are some of the best ones. Even if you don't get anything that's valuable in those, it's still a good opportunity to charge a premium for your services and create referral opportunities. So decedent's a hoarder. home is filled with belongings. Is there a process or service that we'd recommend for inventory and removal while still being sensitive to the family? Ken or Jim, do you guys want to take that? And I'll happily take it, but want to share the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say you need to find your own context. I mean, I go to an investor meeting in town, so I meet flippers. So basically, I'm always like, hey, who are you using for your contracts? Who are you using for your flip homes? So one of the guys I found, I mean, he does most everything. I mean, he took an RV off of property, anything of value, he was just kind of sort of taking it. But he remodeled the house, cleaned out the yard. So basically, he's kind of my go-to guy for most clean out situations. And then I also have my auction company. But I agree with Bruce. I mean, these hoarder houses are awesome opportunities, just like a buyer, many times they are too emotional and they won't write an offer on a home that's in bad condition. The seller can also be emotional. And if they're like, oh my God, the house is just disgusting, I just want to get rid of it. Cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, I would say make them an offer. If they don't want to take that, then pivot to the listing. But sometimes like the emotions get involved and they're just like, hey, this is disgusting. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to think about it. Yes, just take it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this would be a scenario where, Jacob, you want to find out if the seller just wants to get rid of it, or if they want to try to get everything fixed up for a kind of as much money as they can get, and figure out which one of those they want to go with. And Jacob, I am going to assume, and I could be way wrong on this, but I'm going to assume that you're primarily on the real estate listing side of things. If that's the case, then reach out to me, reach out to all the leads, go to the Facebook group, and just say, hey, this is an investor opportunity. I guarantee there's going to be some investors here, including me, including Ken, including Jim, including a lot of people here that would probably be interested in a property like that if you aren't buying it yourself, and if the person wants to just get rid of it. And in a case like that, you tell them, look, you don't have to touch the house at all. Here's the offer. And they could be out of that property without the headache really, really quickly. Now, sometimes they just need help. They don't want to give a property away. They need help, in which case you're just going to say, hey, why don't I take this off of your plate for you? I will find the best deal on a property clean out company. Will auction or consign or do an estate sale on everything that's valuable. I can get the locks changed. Let me handle it. If there's anything that's going to cost money, I will bring you the bids before we approve anything. And then I would say, if we're going to do this, I'd like to be able to list the property, and this is my commission rate. So if I'm coordinating things like that, I personally have no issue charging 7 or 8% on a listing. When I'm doing far more than I would have otherwise and on a traditional listing. So a lot of times my probates are listed at 7%, and that's in a market where everybody else is listing at 5%. I know I'm not supposed to say everybody, where a lot of other people are listing at 5%. I will list at 7% because of the extra service. Ken?
And you said 7%. So what's your split on that?
4.6.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, what I've been doing a lot of times, and I think I have to just adopt your strategy, is basically I'm doing all this work, and then I get them listed at 6%, and then right before we go to market, I'm just like, well, listen, hey, I did all this work. I don't think it's fair that I'm only going to get half the commission. So can I get another 0.5%? And that's been very, very effective. So at least it's boosted my commission up somewhat, but I still think that maybe I'm selling my time too cheaply, where I should be getting 4.5%. Yeah, because some of these are very in depth.
One of the things that I've actually done is I've added in. I'll have a listing menu where people get to choose between a 4.5%, 5.5%, 6% commission, that kind of thing. And then I'll have a little checklist of add-ons, and I'll say, hey, if you want me to do a property clean out for you, this is what it's going to cost. If you want me to, like, I'll have a coordination. If you want a guaranteed sale, add 1% to the plan that you pick. If you want to add a concierge service, add 0.5% to the plan you pick. And they can just say, hey, I want this plan, but I want to add in your concierge service where you coordinate all this for me. Or I want to add in a guaranteed sale where you give me the guaranteed sale. There's so many ways that you can do it, but Ken, yeah, don't sell yourself short, because you're not just selling your time. If you're selling your time, that's a commodity, and every agent that's out there competing with you is going to be selling the same amount of time that you're selling. You're selling your expertise, and that's
Bruce,
what's worth more than time.
Right.
To go back to the original question about the estate sale situation, Ken, you said find somebody local. I couldn't agree more. If you don't have anybody local and you're looking how to find them, I think you also said the local REIA, REIA.com, Real Estate Investors Association.com is a good place. I haven't checked lately, but I know in the past we've heard really good things about estatesales.com also. It's a national organization and you have to be accredited, and I mean, they do a background check to make sure you're not ripping people off. So if you don't have an estate sale company in your market, go to estatesales.com, estatesales.org. You can probably find one. The last we talked about this, it was a year ago. There's different models for an estate sale company, obviously. You know, the old traditional model, I mean, one is here, we'll charge you to come in and clean everything out. That's more of a junk out. And then there's another one like, we'll do it, but we get to keep everything that we find. And then the last we checked a year or so ago, there seemed to be more of a move towards like a fiduciary type company where we'll come in, we'll give you a complete appraisal of, we'll perform all the services, we'll charge you, or we'll just charge you we charge a percentage of what we recover. In other words, if all the value, if there's valuables in the estate and they sell it, and then they do a yard sale and they sell it, they'll, and I think it was about a third. A lot of those estate sale companies will take a third, maybe even out of a half, but they don't charge anything to the seller. So there's different models, and it kind of depends. Often your seller probably doesn't care. They just want to get rid of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like your example with the trailer, Ken, survey it. If there's something valuable there, you might want to recommend a company that does the seller will get something out of it. If there isn't, maybe just hire a junk out company. But there's options, and I'd check out your REIA.com or your estatesales.com, and you might be able to find the companies that specialize in those options.
If you do have any attorney partners, they can probably give you people as well. Actually, the auction company that I use, I got from an attorney, not even somebody that I'm necessarily working with, but I happen to get in touch with her for one reason or another, and she referred these people to me. So it's also good. I have two estate planning companies now. One will list them online for $5. They'll start each item at $5. And then right before the bid closes, prices typically go up. The other one will try to max out and list them for the most amount of money. So one is going to be more likely to get rid of more stuff faster. The other one potentially is going to take longer. So you also can give clients options in that regard too. Like Jim said, you just want to blow this stuff out, then let's list it, start everything at $5, and then maybe you'll get more and maybe you won't, but it'll be gone. Or do you want to try to get maximum amount of money for every item?
Yep. So Jacob, hopefully that helped. By the way, don't worry if you don't have all your team members yet. I loved what Bill Gross had said on his coaching call a couple of weeks ago. You are the team. If I offered you $1 million and told you I need to find a junk out company by the end of the day, I bet you'd find a junk out company. So if you don't have someone on your team and you realize that it's needed, you make the offer and then you go put the connections together. It doesn't matter if you don't have them now, you'll find them when the motivation is right. So just tell someone, hey, I know this is a big job. Why don't I take care of this for you? I'll bring you the bids so that you can approve which one we want to go to. I'm just going to get you connected with the people to help get this cleaned out and valuables sold. Is that fair? Yeah, that's fair. Okay, perfect. Now let's talk about the house, and then you move on. Okay. So Valerie, you've got a developer that's shown interest in a probate property for redevelopment. How do you ensure the heirs are getting a fair deal and understand the implications of selling to a developer? You're going to explain as best you can your knowledge, but I would bring in a private or third-party appraisal company to tell them what the land should be worth if it sells to a developer. When it comes to development, if you don't have a lot of experience in development, you're really doing a disservice if you don't bring in a professional. So I would do it on my dime. I would say, hey, you know what? This is what I think it's worth if we sold it the way that it is. If a developer buys it, looks like they're trying to make a little bit lower offer potentially. Why don't we have an appraisal so that we know that we're getting a good deal? And then personally on my team in my market, I have 2 appraisal companies that I don't run through banks. I can just call the owner directly and say, I need an appraisal. Who can you send? And that's how I would go to make sure they're getting a decent deal on a development deal.
Bruce, I wish I could remember his name. We had a customer a couple of years ago, very similar situation. It was vacant land. It was several acres. It did have a major road going through it. And, he originally had started talking to the sellers about what the comps were for vacant land in that area. And he did just a little more research and found out that it was in the path of progress and all the land ahead of it was being rezoned commercial. And so he did exactly what you said. And from what I remember, the property went from 300 to like 1.8 million. So, he didn't try to flip it or anything, but it was a slam dunk for getting it rezoned. He helped the seller do that. He obviously got a lifetime customer. So I think that's great advice. Know what your limits are. And if there's any question that it has higher use than what it's being used for, spend a few $100s for an appraisal, even a commercial appraisal, even if it's $500, it'd be a great investment for the seller to take that risk and spend the money.
It'll be more than $500.
$1,000. What's a commercial appraisal? Thousands?
Probably 1,000 to 1,500.
Yeah,
could be lower. Depends where you are, your location.
But the potential gain is off the charts for what they're going to spend. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and also you remove liability, right?
Yep.
And remove doubt too. I mean, sometimes you get a situation where there's one house and one of the siblings wants to buy the house and the other one's okay with selling it, but then you're going to have a problem with figuring out what the house is valued at, because everybody, even in a family who's, negotiating, there might be differences. So, hey, get a third party independent appraisal, and then you have the most, at arm's length opinion that you're going to get, because even if it's a real estate agent giving an opinion in that scenario, they might think the real estate agent's favoring one person or the other. The appraiser's never met either one of these people, so that way you have an objective opinion of value.
Yep. So Gerald asked, what's the upcharge on a nasty hoarder home? The truth is, for me, I'm not going to do a whole lot more than coordinating the clean out and the estate sale. I will coordinate that. I might meet or have my concierges who I have meet the estate sale companies for bids and the clean out crews for bids. But let's just say I didn't have a team member or a concierge or anyone like that. I might personally go over and meet a couple of clean out crews to get bids, and 1 or 2 estate sale companies to get bids. And my involvement is not over at that point, but I don't go clean the property out myself. I may pop in and check on it or something like that. So the reality is, I feel like I've done a good job of lining up services, but 1% is great money when you're doing that. I might even do it for just a 0.5% bump. It depends on your business model. When I used to charge on all listings, I would charge 7%. And agents would lose their mind. You can't do that. you can't charge 7%. And we were in demand, and agents would come on our team and we'd say, hey, we list at 7%. Oh, no one will ever do that, they'd say. Well, we'd get 80% of our appointments to sign up at 7%. And a lot of them were paying $895 up front on top of the 7%. And so don't limit your thinking. If what you provide is worth a lot and worth peace of mind to a seller, charge. So you're coordinating things. Now, if I'm in the house myself cleaning the property out, then I'm going to charge a lot more than 7%. I'm going to charge like $5,000 for cleaning it out, then the listing commission. But in a case like this, Hoarder House, you're more coordinating bids and maybe just making sure that whoever ends up getting hired does a decent job.
Yeah, and I think this could be done on an novation agreement as well. It's a little bit more of an advanced strategy. It's also potentially more risky, but if you're like, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm just going to pay for everything. I'm going to take care of everything. Here's the expectations of what you should expect. But when all's said and done, we're going to have everything out of the house. I'm going to put new carpet in the house. I'm going to paint it. And the novation agreement, we're going to be able to sell for a lot more money because now I've done this, and it's going to be completely hands-free. And the novation agreement is a way to handle that. But what we do know with the rise of iBuyers is that people will pay for convenience. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Bruce said, somebody's going to take 25% less for their house because they don't have to show it. No way, that would never happen. It was, I think, 11 or 12% of the market. So don't underestimate somebody. Maybe if they're financially set or they don't care about money that much, they will absolutely pay for convenience. And if you're not offering it to them, then they are going to go to somebody else who will take their money for the convenience that they're going to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Hey, Bruce, I don't know if we have any more. We're coming up on about 7 minutes up. We do have a slide that'll just take a couple minutes to go up. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, no,
in the meantime,
I don't. Let me look. I'm just scanning. I don't think there are any other questions. But I am going to close my portion out by basically just saying, don't be afraid to charge what you're worth. If you're not worth a lot, be afraid to charge too much. Okay. My advice to anyone that's listening that wants to earn more income on your deals is go look and figure out first how much you'd like to make on your listings or on your deals. And second, go put some services together that make your offer worth what you're asking for. So if you want to increase your listing commission by 1% or 2%, ask yourself what additional services you might be able to provide, not money you spend on the deal. I mean, if you make an extra $10,000 on a listing, but it means that you had to spend $10,000 on a staging, that's a bad business move. So what services can you provide that would warrant and help a seller feel really good about paying you that extra commission that they wouldn't pay another agent? And I know this is for agents. There's tons of investors here. Investors, you should be thinking the same way. But you should be able to increase your income, per deal income, by a lot if you just brainstorm a little bit and figure out what extra services you're able to offer. And extra points if you can automate those services to where you don't personally have to spend much more extra time to provide them.
Perfect.
All right,
and
Jim.
Eric, let me just set this up and you can put the slide up in just about 30 seconds. And then Bruce, we probably have time for another question or two afterwards if anybody still wants to raise their hands. We try not to constantly give you guys promotions. We really do. We don't raise our price just to reduce them unless there's a valid reason. And usually, we have our Black Friday at Thanksgiving that we usually offer. We usually start around November talking about don't take the holidays off. This when the rest of your competition is going to be taking a break. That's the best time for you to work and the worst time to take off, because you got a lot less competition. Our salespeople have been saying they're already starting to hear from people Well, I want to get started, but we got, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up. So I think I'll wait till after the holidays. So one of our brilliant salespeople came up with this promotion to incentivize you not to do that. And in the long run, it isn't just for us to make extra sales. It's because we really believe would be good for you. So Eric, go ahead and put up the don't wait till after the holidays promotion, please. So we're sort of doing a reverse incentive to stick around. This is only good until the end of the month. If you've been thinking about getting involved, we will give you 10% off your first month of leads, 15% off your next month of leads, and 20% off your third month. So now once you're invested in October, November, you got no choice but to work December. that's really, I think that's kind of smart. It really is. And believe me, it'd be good for you guys too. So anybody wants to take care of that, just go to support@alltheleads.com. If you have a salesperson that's already you're talking to, you can contact them. You can call our direct line. I don't even know what our direct number is. Do you, Bruce?
Yeah, it's right there on the page. It says 844-532-3369.
Or go to support@alltheleads.com. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but we wanted to you got a couple more days to take advantage of that. Don't wait till after the holidays. Take advantage of the decreased competition over the next few months, and cash in and start off next year,
Yeah, especially if you're just starting out in probate, you want to come in where there's the least competition.
Yep.
I mean, I got into real estate at the end of the last boom and, at the beginning of the bust. Other realtors didn't want to sell houses at $50,000. I'm not saying I was thrilled about it, but like I had so much business. I had 13 deals at one time because nobody else was there to want to do the work. Yep. So right now is the time if you're learning probate, this is the time to get in when the competition drops off, because even if the seller realizes you're not as experienced, they're like, somebody's here to help me. Like this is the time.
Man, that kind of reminds me, I bringing this up, I always get some people that get a little offended. We had made a splashy ad many years ago on the radio, and man, we pissed some agents off so bad with this ad. And it said we ran it for about a week in October, and it said, hey, the holidays are coming up, and that means three things. It means the weather's getting colder. It means you've got to plan for your holidays, and it means that it's the beginning of your real estate agent's 3-month vacation. And if you want a real estate team that doesn't take a vacation, works really hard, call us. And that exploded. We got a lot of business off of that, and we made a lot of agents mad. Now, we didn't disparage realtors, but we did disparage real estate licensees. So that made a little bit of a splash, but it's true. A lot of investors, agents, they're taking time off. They're waiting. And I will tell you, and I don't want this to sound crass in the least bit, but death doesn't take a break during the holidays. When you are a family and you're faced with the loss of a loved one and you've got a task to do, you don't get to just put it off because you've got the holidays coming up. You've got, emergencies and bad things happen regardless of what time of year we're in.
Yeah. So the other thing I'd add to that, that's perfect. But during the holidays too, we teach empathy, and it'll change your career. I think Aaron a few weeks ago, he said he's a New Yorker, changed his attitude because he's more empathetic. But the other thing is too that the people you're going to talk to are going to be more empathetic. As we're heading into the holidays, as they're thinking about the loved ones and their family and getting together for Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're also going to be able to take a little more time, have a little more patience with you. So again, from every angle. I mean, the holidays is the time to connect with people, and
Okay.
less competition, easier to connect with people. So again, keep going.
You make a great point that I forgot to mention, that the person who came up with this ad said, think about it. If you just filed probate September, October, and you're getting together with your family member over the holidays, it's going to be a topic of conversation. What do we need to do? You know, we put it off long enough. We got to do something about the house. One of them says, oh, I just talked to Bruce last week, or I talked to a great guy, Ken, last week that can help us. So for so many different reasons, it's a great time to get started if you know, if you've been thinking about it. So appreciate it, guys. Bruce, any last minute questions? Or are we good?
Are there unique disclosure requirements for probate sales compared to a traditional real estate sale? No, nope. And there are some states that may require you to disclose a loss in a house. Not many, but there could potentially be that. You want to make sure that you're listing the seller's name, which is typically the name of an estate, or the estate of so-and-so et al., which is essentially and others. So just make sure you're getting the seller listed right. And I would put an estate. I would just make sure that the seller line was filled out properly. Now, you don't want to go publicly broadcasting, hey, this is an estate, because that could put a flag up saying, buy me cheap. And if you're listing a house, you'd be doing your seller a disservice by like screaming it from the hilltops that this is an estate, because you're potentially gonna pull some people in that are trying to undercut your seller's price. But I don't believe that there should be any additional disclosures. If some of you are in a state where maybe there is, please chat that in, but not to my knowledge.
No, they're going to have additional disclosures. I think it's also very company dependent. But it's funny, I do a lot of probate. You know, I don't mean to brag, but you know, that's just the way it is. So I listed a property. I got an agent that sent me an offer from EXP, which I'm with, and then she had all this probate disclosure. And I'm like, why are you sending me this? I just did, 10 deals in the last 3 months. She goes, I don't know. She goes, I just thought there was additional disclosure. So I sent it. So I was like, there's a bunch of stuff in this offer that's incorrect. So I actually helped her rewrite the new offer. And we lost the probate disclosure. And yeah.
All right. We good to go, Bruce?
We're good.
All right, another great call in spite of Tim not being here. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Thanks, Coach Ken and Bruce. Thank you to everybody who actively participated. I want to challenge each of you, take one idea that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Have a great week, guys. Same time next week. Take care.